Thank you for raising your voice. I hope I'm not too annoying. You need to be honest with me. But say yes. I want to hear yes, that I'm not annoying. Beautiful. I like it. I'm not a singer, but I want to do it. I was given a microphone. Jonathan is here, gave me an amp, so I want to honor that and use it. And if you want to join me at the front sometimes, you need to step out of your comfort zone and come, and I will leave you there. And it's yours. It's not mine. Ecclesiastes, welcome to DIBC. François is my name. The preacher, in Hebrew we say Kohelet. That's the title of the book in Hebrew, Ecclesiastes. We are still on the demonstration of vanity. Anywhere it will be always demonstration of vanity until chapter 6, verse 12. And we have reached our message number 4. I'm delighted. We're going to have a great time, challenging time in some parts of the message as usual. What have we done last week? Last message, we saw that God wants to bless us with the joys of life in their proper context with balance. Okay, Duke? That's what He wants to do. Eating and drinking, I shared with you the joy of it, fellowship around the table, getting louder a little bit and so on, sharing and so forth, because this comes from the hand of God in verse 24 of last week. There is nothing better for a man than to eat and drink in chapter 2, verse 24, and tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen, that it is from the hand of God. Okay, we've learned that these basic enjoyment don't come from us. Okay, you cannot plant weed in Saskatchewan in December. Wheat to do bread. I'm not talking about weed. Wheat here, because everything comes in season. It's provided for us, type of thing. So these basic enjoyment of life here is not something that we can necessarily bestow upon ourselves. It's pure enjoyment does not stand in power. That's a gift from above. And if we have that mentality, yes, you provide on the table, but who's providing the job and so on, and the wisdom to go and shop? Everything is from above. And with that attitude in mind, we have an eye up and an eye down. That's the picture of last week. Once again, a walk with balance. Answer, seeking balance. No one can do that. You cannot do it. It's either you look up or you look down. So that's kind of a cartoon story here. Focus on higher values, which is extremely important, not to be too disappointed. And in the meantime, enjoy your earthly values at the proper time without greed and so on and so forth. That's the balance that is there today. That was my word of introduction to remind you of what we do a little bit in these series of Ecclesiastes. Today's message deals with the preacher, Solomon, and the willingness to share with us his life experiences, including insights, good advice, and as well as his frustration. He wants to share that with us and so on. Before we start, I need to address something that is very, very complex for the Christian realm. And that's the issue of free will. I would love to tell you that man doesn't have free will, but I can't, because it's biblical. Okay? But we need to keep one thing in mind, that the free will that we have and that you have decided to come tonight, you have decided your time of departure, what you will be driving, what you will be donating or not. It's all part of your free will, but our free will is limited by what we are. What are we? A fallen creature. So there is no such a thing in humankind as an absolute free will. None of you can get into the Tower of Freedom in New York, get on top, and throw yourself down and say, we'll fly today. It's not going to work. So our free will, as much as it is largely discussed, keep in mind that it is limited by what we are. What are we? A fallen creature. Doesn't matter if I'm saved or not, we still have the sin nature, so our free will isn't an absolute free will. Same with the cat in the house. How many of you have a pet? You have a dog, okay? You open the cat, specifically they like to smell and take their time, and they have their favorite food. So you take the cat chow, and you put the can of cat chow there, and Mickey Mouse cat chow, and you put it behind, the cat comes out. And he's happy, and he rubs against you, and he goes to the two, and then he goes to the second one, his favorite, and he eats his favorite. He has free will. He smells them both, recognizes what he wants, and he goes for it. But the free will of the animal is limited by what he is. What is he? An animal. Simple as this. Cannot make a choice for Christ, doesn't have eternal life, and rarely drives your car. So that's the free will of an animal. He's limited by what he is. He has free will. He has his favorite spot in the house, under your bed or the blanket or a pillow that you give to him, and he goes there. Free will. He's not going to go anywhere else. That's his spot, limited by what he is. And also subject to the curse, the Adamic curse, because that's why your older dog has cancer. You have lost a cat. You've lost dogs in your life because they die. They have liver cancer. They have all kinds of diseases, and they grow old. Why? Because since the fall of Adam. So, with this in mind now, it allows me to carry on with the passage. And basically what I said here is a class that can last for 8 weeks. We have free will. It's limited by what we are. It's not an absolute one here. And it will simply help us to make the passage a little bit more palatable tonight. Tastier. With Solomon's exposure of reality, the following thoughts might arise in your mind. What I'm saying right now. Okay, the following thoughts of the message might come to your mind, might not also. Often we engage in work, not of our own making. I mean, we get involved in life, in activities of our own choice. Yes, right. Oh, I'm going to do this for life. I'm going to marry that person. I'm going to start a business. Name it. But there is a voice sometimes in our mind telling us that somehow we're a part of something greater than we are. All of you have been there. You say you reach the top of your career or the top of your success and so on, and you say, wow, there is something greater behind here that I did not know, and it's not discernible. We may also be engaged in the affairs of this life for many years with intensity, like I do the ministry, yet at times we may say, how free was I in the choice of such an activity? Was that really a free will that I exercised in making a choice to do it, or I was led to it by different circumstances in life? You have been there, done that, bought the t-shirt also. And you might have that in mind right now. Here, in verses 2 to 8, with the list, a number of activities. You have, jot down a note, you will like that. You have 14 pairs there in what I read. When I ask you to stand, you have 14 pairs of opposites that may be challenging for some while they are kept in context. At times, some of them will sound a bit discouraging. But when we discover that we're not quite in charge of our lives to an extent, it moves. We go from the tide of events that I will basically expound here and the rounds of life. Realizing that there is above a God, above all things here, that looks after you and I, even when you feel that you are let down. So with that in mind, we will discover a little bit what's going on here. And the best way to look at them verse by verse here is to keep them within the context. It was my challenge in preparing the message this week. I'm a teacher of the context unless it does ask otherwise by the scriptures. Everything has to be kept in context. You cannot spiritualize the text either when you want to have a proper exposition of the text. Okay? Before we look at them, let me give you the conclusion right now. No, we're not done here, but he will conclude or by making two conclusions, Solomon, or two observations. Number one, If the times and the seasons belong to God, then there is a God that transcends anything a man can do. If he owns the times and the seasons, there is something that transcends anything that man can do. Like I said, Siberia, but I don't know to go to Siberia in Russia. Some of you are flatlander, Saskatchewan, Alberta. You cannot plant your tomatoes on January the 1st. Shows you something. Definitely not in charge. And you kindly submit, we need to wait a few more months or weeks. Secondly, everything that will happen, even calamities, talk about the last 365 days, are part of God's plan here. Verse 11 of the chapter 3. Verse 11, I did not read that. He has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. Bang for your free will. Slang. I like this also. I have a PowerPoint. Let me slow down a bit. Deuteronomy 29:29. It's under the law, but it counts for the whole body of scriptures. I would like to get your attention on that. It reads as follows. The secret things belong to the Lord our God. So everything that we don't know belongs to Him. But the things revealed belong to us and to our sons forever, that we may observe all the words of this law. It doesn't count only for the Mosaic law, it counts for your entire Bible. So that's why sometimes I say to you, if you learn new truths from the Bible, beloved, act upon them. Because these are the things revealed to you instead of being attracted to what we don't know. Because God transcends our thoughts and so on. I like that. That's a door open for us to trust implicitly in the Lord, which we haven't lately. The church has demonstrated that in the last year, that we don't really trust God. We're waiting for the vaccine to be more efficient. More trust in a vaccination than God. So don't tell me I'm going to have a hard time. I confess this and it's on video. I'm not demeaning anybody. But I'm going to have a hard time to sit under different teachers that will make a sermon about trusting God. I would be shy if I would have been closed for 12 months to deliver a message on faith and trust. I would like to invite you not to believe it, because we have a long way to go on this. I'm going to stop right there. Verses 1 and 8, we have two words here, et. I don't think it's on there, doesn't matter. I'll come back to this in a moment. Et, in Hebrew, it's time. It means proper and suitable time. Another word of Hebrew that you might be willing to note, zman, season and a specific season. Both are in God's hand, the time and the season. So our activities as mankind, delight, and undertakings that we do are within the limits that He does determine. It's within His limits. If I was a fan of Quebec and snowmobile. Enjoyed it. That was one of my delights. I had 2 Polaris, liquid cold, 100 miles an hour on ice. In July, it doesn't work out. So, I was unsafe, and if there was no snow by December 25th, was swearing like crazy. What's going on here? Telling God that He forgot the snow. Blaming Him. Could not enjoy my snowmobiling. Stupid rain. Okay? So, basically we start. We have 7 verses from 2 to 8. Calculate them. 2 to 8, it's 7 verses. Each verse have 4 parts with the word time, and the word time is used 28 times. 28, you can circle them. I'm not cheating you. Why is it so? In Genesis, you have 7 promises to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. Matthew chapter 1, he gives the story of Israel with 3 sets of 14 generations. Do you know why this? And sometimes they skip some. Because for the Jews, it's easier to remember. That's why the Jews, most of them, specifically these guys, they have outstanding memory. Because they read the text in Hebrew and they have sets of 3s, sets of 5, and sets of 7s, and that's why it helps them to memorize. So Solomon put it in the same format here. Okay? 4 parts times is used, so 28 times. So I gave you why and so on. We start. Now I would like you to be in your Bible. Okay, Luke? We start for the message. Won't be that long. A time to give birth and a time to die. That's the first pair of it, and then it carries on a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. Have I already told you, I know the answer is yes, that I wish that I would have been an Old Testament saints. In the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I would have liked to live in the time of Job, because Job still remains my favorite book of the Bible. I like the Job in close to Damascus, the land, many servants, and the most beautiful daughters, and so on. I would have liked to be born in the time of Job and be a saint at that time. I have no power about it. God said you're going to be born in 1960 on the church age. You're not a tribulation saint. You're not an Old Testament saint. I have no power or whatsoever about it. As well as no power as far as to decide the day that I will die. Exodus here, for many fell slain, not Exodus, but I have Exodus in a moment. No, we cannot decide. For many fell have slain because the war was from God. I'll come back to that later here. We cannot hasten death. We do today by injecting and so on. You cannot do it. It's unethical. It's murder, basically. But our governments, they sanction this and so on. Same with the trees that I basically, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted here. Think about farming. I said it 3 times already. Farming in Saskatchewan, farming in Alberta and Quebec and BC, you still wait for the land to be ready. Nobody's in charge of it. Need to wait with patience again, because it comes from above. The trees, they become not productive either. How many of you, when you were young, you used to climb a trees in the backyard, and all of a sudden you pass by that old house that you were living in, and you discovered that the tree has been cut down because it was leaning towards the house and it was ready to collapse. And you almost weep because you can see yourself climbing and having a tire with a rope here and balancing in the branches. That's the round of life. That's what he wants to express. Verse 3. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up here. Okay? It's an unbelieving world. That's why Chronicles, for many fell slain because of the war was from God. It's been going on from Adam and Eve. No choice here. Because it's an unbelieving world. People kill because of greed. You have a nice car, they steal it, and on the way they escape, they kill. All of these things do happen because we live in an unbelieving world. To heal, think about Israel as a nation. Israel was destroyed, was the diaspora, and after the tremendous Holocaust in the time of the Nazi, what happened in May 1948? They become a nation. They rebuilt. And they will collapse again in the time of the tribulation. Same with prophecy. Come, let us, this is a prophecy. It hasn't happened yet. Come, let us return to Jehovah, because he has torn us, but he will heal us. The torning by means of the great tribulation, and he will heal them. He has wounded us, but he will bandage us. It goes, a time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. Think Holocaust. We move on. 4a, a time to weep and a time to laugh in 4. A time to mourn and a time to dance here. All of it is related to verses 2 and 3. Because we die and so on and so forth. So that's the result. Death, illness, losses should lead to trust God. And it's a good statement because you all know your people that went through a major crisis and then they're found by God in that crisis. Does not happen to everybody, but it should lead to trust God. What we have right now, the pandemic and the fear of the people, should lead not to crave for a vaccine, but it should lead to a more deep reverence in God. It's a crisis, it's losses for some. Lots of people are found through crisis. 4B, a time to mourn and a time to dance here, thinks about the wedding. All of you like this. How is good in cha-cha here? 1, 2, 3 and stuff, and valse and so on. Christians are allowed to dance. Dance with your partner. David, what did he do when he brought the Ark of the Covenant? Dancing in circle. And if you go to Israel, you go to the, have you been there on the Jesus boat on the Sea of Galilee? They dance for you. Square dancing. And they scream and they worship. They pretend to be Christians, of course. Some of them are not here. But there is a time to mourn and a time to dance. Verse 5 is a challenge. Allow me my stuff here. I'm going to explain to you. What's verse 5? A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. Circle that emphatically. You will like it or maybe you will dislike it. A time to embrace and a time to shun embracing here. There's no need to spiritualize this. It's not rebuilding churches like I've read in some commentary and destroying them and so on. Not at all. Okay? They allude to corruption of the church and the corruption of the doctrine, but this is completely off the context. No need to do this. Those who do that, they don't understand the Hebrew poetry. The Hebrew poetry is not made of rhyme. I ate ice cream and then I put on my high beam. It's not based upon rhyme. It's based upon synonymous parallelism, something that goes in parallel, and sometimes the second sentence, that's the meaning of about embracing here, throws light on the first sentence here, which is gathering stone and throwing stone here. The very context has to be respected. I have made my choice based upon the Jewish writings, what we call the Midrash here. So that's the meaning, okay? The Hebrew word for stones is avanim, and the Hebrew word for children is banim. There is kind of a play on word all this here. The Midrash quotes, that's the meaning. There is a time to cast semen to beget children when thy wife is clean, and there is a time to conserve the semen when your wife is unclean. That's the context of the verse. So meaning to the same person, you embrace the person and there is a time to embrace the person, think intercourse, and there is a time to refrain from it. That's the meaning of the verse. Cannot twist it up. Those who don't want to hear that, spiritualize it. Can't do it. And Solomon, think about Solomon. Can he write such a thing? I think he was acquainted with women. Was he not? Was not gay, eh? I think he was a little bit towards.
I think so.
Thank you. So there is a time to embrace, to cast stone, and there is a time to gather stone. Shun embracing. Did I swear? You look at me. Beautiful. That's good. I'm done. There is a way, 5A and 5B, to stay close together. The same person can be treated differently on different occasions, and there is no sin. Just read this. 6A, a time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. In 6 here. To search and to give up as a lost. You look for something in the garage, cannot find it, and now you realize that you've been searching for 3 hours, and you say, I'm wasting my time, let's go to Canadian Tire, buy another jug for hot water, here, cost you $10. So stop searching, you're wasting your time here. So that's the issue here. There is a time to search, and the time to say, heck of a deal. We'll buy a new one. That's it. Thank you. Enough. To keep and to throw away. Oh, yeah. Should I say that? Of course I will. A time to keep and a time to throw away. Write down your attics, your crawling space, and your double wide garage. There is a time to keep and there is a time to throw away. But you know what you do? You keep everything. So your children and your grandchildren will be the one that will have to pay a pickup truck and to dump everything at the dump. And ask Terry, what's the price to dump stuff at the dump? It can be expensive. So why don't you get rid of your stuff right now?
Because it's expensive.
Expensive what? That's it. Because you have a nice amp. But do you think that Sophia will like this amp? She cannot even carry it right now. Now this amp is the size of a matchbox. And there is no wire. It's completely obsolete. But you gather it because the grandkids will play with that. They won't. They won't. Will not. Won't. WON''T. So don't pass it on. Just, there is a time to keep and a time to throw away. Verse 7, time to tear apart, to sew together. This is the rending of the garment. Now Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, so he tore his garment. It's a sign of grief. 2 Samuel 13:31, then the king arose, tore his garment, and lay on the ground. So then there is a time to grieve like this, and when the grieving is over, oh, I wrecked my garment, you sew them back together. And she quilts, so she can sew back together my garment. There is a time to grieve, there is a time to put it back together. Think about the circle of life. Notice the parallelism here, 7b. What does it say in 7b? A time to be silent and a time to speak. Look at Job. Then they sat down on the ground. Hey, I would like, Stephanie, you try it with Mom. You sat down in your living room on the ground with her for 7 days and 7 nights with no one speaking a word to her. After 7 minutes, I'm hungry. For they saw that his pain was very great. Verse 2 or 3:1, afterward Job, a time to keep silent, opened his mouth, and Job said, woohoo! 7 nights and 7 days without you talking to each other.
Oh.
It happened.
No, we'll talk about murder later. But that's the deal. A time to mourn, a time to say, and a time to speak. That's the circle of life. I'm not teaching you anything new at all. How can Solomon close the meeting without mentioning love and hate? We have been made in the image of God. The image of God that we bear is not necessarily in the physical, although part of it is, because no animal has the capacity to do it. An animal is there. The hawk is high, but he looks down. Mankind can look up. Father. But the image of God is more into the immaterial part, the fact that we are intellect, emotion, and will. Jesus wept. Emotion. Everything that I say that will come to pass, it will come to pass. Will. Intellect, all-knowing. So, it's part of it. I'm going to give you part of my story here. Time to love and a time to hate. It works. On 8b, let's read 8b here. A time to love and a time to hate, and a time for war and a time for peace. Am I going to hide to you that I am a divorcee? No. I always love my people. But somebody came into my life one day and left me. And I went to see my mom and dad in Quebec, and I told them that the person left, and it took them both. They died. My dad stood up when I was sharing my story en français, in French, and he went to bed. He said, I cannot hear what you're saying right now, because he wanted my best. I was drinking and completely discouraged. Was I a Christian? Yes, and I just said I was drinking and I was discouraged. Do I love the person? No. I haven't reached that point of forgiveness now. It's the most devastating thing. When somebody commits adultery on you and you love the person and all of a sudden everything collapses. And you're going to smile at me. You need to forgive. I know that I need to forgive. I know. Will I reach that point? Maybe. That's my personal testimony. The person went away with double premeditated murder. Marriage by convenience. Oh, I so love her? Not at all. Not now. And all of you, to some extent, do have the same experience in life. Relate to Solomon. One eye up, one eye down. Do you think that he doesn't know? Man, it's YouTube. It's going to be on the website. It might be seen by the world. I'm here to be transparent. I relate to the book. I love my research in it. Love it to the bone. I like it. I see myself in throwing stones and gathering stones. There's a time in a different situation. Swear, God, I will never have children. Right now, as I speak on the cam, I am having with Olga, my wife, and Sophia, my wife, the best time of my life ever. Despite the donations, despite the hardship of ministry, despite everything, I am having the best time of my life. So somebody in the picture was a bit taller than I. Slightly. Sarcastically. Now I read 9 and 15 to 15 and I just make a few comments. Come. What profit is there to the worker that in which she toils? It goes with chapter 1 verse 3. I have seen the task which God has given to the Son of Man with which to occupy themselves. He has made everything appropriated in its time, and He has also set eternity in the heart. That's beautiful. Yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. Let me make a few comments here. Okay? Is he negative? Not sure. Not quite. He's not negative. Negatively, for man here, we can do nothing to avert times and circumstances. I cannot go back. I cannot fix it right now. I need to move on. With two eyes up there and one eye maybe down there too. COVID, global warming, racism, name it. It's kind of funny, eh? Global warming is no longer any priority for anybody. You will not even remember this. What was it 10 years ago? The ozone coat was disappearing. Who cares about it now? You still do spray. You buy spray can. Heck of a deal. That's the same thing. Keep your energy for God. I'll be done soon. While we keep busy with what God has ordained for us in our lives, verse 10 here, Solomon throws another consideration in verse 11. He has set eternity, and the word that there, it's beautiful that we have in chapter 3 here. He has made everything appropriate. It's beautiful. The King James, Jan, you're here. Read the verse for me, please, brother. It's verse 11.
He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their hearts, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end.
That's it. And that's part of his life. Everything, dancing, mourning, casting stone. He knows everything, and it's part of his life, François. That's your plate. Have fun, but keep your eye on me. And now I want to say something here about the pinnacle. That's a word of encouragement as we will close soon. It's a long message, but I don't think you're bored right now.
No.
This. Verse 26 of chapter 1 of Genesis. It's complicated. I'm going to use big words. Okay? Then God said, let us make man in our image. So when you study the grammatical issue in the original Hebrew of it, it goes from the jussive form, which is grammatical, and the jussive means a command, let there be. But there is no such a thing when it comes to man as let there be, because it shifts from the jussive form to the coortative form, let us. Why? Because you are the epitome of His creation. He never said, let us create the fish of the ocean and let us make the branches of the tree. But when it comes to the creation of man, it's momentous. Sublime. Sublime en français. Now, I'm making man. For him, you are on top of the list with a love that will never be measured enough. You are the epitome. We are the epitome of his creation here. That's why he uses the cohort, of course, opening a plurality on the Godhead, but it's cohortative. Let us make man in our image. Animals are not made in the image of God. Only you and I. Angels cannot be saved. Your pet is not savable. Because otherwise Jesus would have had to become an angel. He did not. Otherwise Jesus Christ would have had to become a pet. He did not. He became a man because salvation is for you alone. And I. God has set eternity in their heart so that they will not find me the secret things. It's a repetition of 29:29 here. It's beautiful. What is about to happen when he created this momentous, crucial, significant, sublime, the creation of you and I. Through Adam and Eve, our parents. You are a masterpiece. You are a masterpiece of creation. Nobody can understand what's going on, Stephanie, in your brain, all the little drawers that does the 2 + 2, and your language and the color of the eyes, and that everything is sustained, and we fear to die. Whew. You have been given everlasting life. God has set eternity, where does it say that? In their heart in verse 11 and so forth. Verses 12 and 13. I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and do good. The do good here, it's in Hebrew to get good in one's lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks sees good in all his labor, it is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will remain forever. There is nothing to add to it, and there is nothing to take from it. For God has so worked out that men should fear Him. That's my conclusion right now. That which has been already, and that which will be has already been, for God's sakes, what has passed. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this, but that's Qoheleth, Solomon's conclusion right now that I throw at you as I conclude at this very moment. Okay? The use of time as God ordained here, and the circle of life. Everything that I said during that message and since the beginning of Ecclesiastes is made for one purpose: to develop in you and I, here in the heart, a higher level of reverence for Him. And it cannot be attained by pride. It is my bank account. I am in charge here, and I decide where I buy my bread at Thrifty or Superstore. I don't care where you buy your bread. Let us recognize that the wheat that grows in the flat land is given from Him, because He projects the suns on it, He sends snow, and it melts, and it sprouts. So an attitude of thankfulness, there is nothing like this man of my favorite book. When he repents, then Job answered Jehovah and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be restrained. After 70 questions in chapter 39, 40, and 41, God throws at him 70 questions that are not answerable. Are you there when the calf give birth? You've never seen a deer bearing. This could be very rare. Do you teach the ox north and south, and to immigrate in the south and to come back in the north, or vice versa? Do you lead them by your intellectual power? Job, answer me. I retract and I repent in dust and ashes. I will never speak again. So passing the door here, one prayer. The circle of life. We're 7 months away from September. François, can we go through the summer first? Well, I will allow you to do that. And in 10 years, in British Columbia, you just finished the roof. You just roof your house. In 15 years, 17, you're going to have to mow the lawn on the roof again. How about your cupboard that are completely out of style? Oh, so important. Reverence of God, dear you. And you know what? I know you do. I know you have it already. You are a magnificent creation. You sustain a relationship with Him. Do not allow Satan to steal your enthusiasm about your finding, His finding of you. God bless you. And thank you for listening. More to come. Love that book. Steffi. What do we sing, Steffi?